What's up, everyone? My name is Olivia. I'm 23 years old and I live with a lymphatic disease known as primary lymphedema. And today I'm going to be doing a little Q&A about it. So let's get into it. Let's answer some questions. Let's learn about lymphedema. However, before we get started, I'd just like to make a brief disclaimer that I am not a medical professional in any regard. I'm not a scientist. I will be speaking from my own experience and just talking about the things that I've learned over the past 23 years of having this disease. I would also like to say that my experience is not reminiscent of every single person in the lymphatic disease community. Everyone has lymphedema in their own unique way, and I would never want to invalidate those experiences or anything like that. I'm just going to be kind of talking from my own perspective, shedding some light on the disease, and I especially want to talk about it in regards to pediatric lymphedema, because I think that's a conversation that we can continue to expand upon and have. And as someone who had pediatric lymphedema, I just want to shed some light on it. Lymphedema is a lymphatic disease where excess fluid, known as lymph, collects in your lymphatic tissues and causes swelling, known as edema. So together, lymphedema is fluid swelling. Tag yourself. I'm fluid swelling. And this can occur primarily, meaning you are born with it, you are born with a dysfunction in your lymphatic system, or it can occur secondarily from like surgery, injury, radiation, whatever it may be. It is unique to each individual person. It really varies. For someone who may develop lymphedema secondarily, from lymph node removal due to breast cancer radiation or anything like that, they will probably be diagnosed at a later stage in their life. However, for someone like me who was born with lymphedema, I was diagnosed at 9 months old. At first, when I was born, I had symptoms present at birth. My head was really swollen, my feet were swollen, my hands were swollen, and the doctors were like, "You're just a chunky baby," like that's what they told my parents, was just that I was an overweight baby. In reality, my lymphatic system was not functioning and I have this primary disease. So I was diagnosed after 9 months, but I know there are many people who will have lymphedema for, 15 plus years and will not get a diagnosis for such a long time because of a lack of knowledge in the medical community around lymphedema, a lack of access to resources, lymphedema therapy, everything like that. So it really does depend on the person, the kind of medical resources they have access to, and how knowledgeable their doctors are. No one else in my family has Ellie. As far as we are aware, we do have some long lost family that we just don't have medical records for. So it's possible that I've got a great relative who had lymphedema. But otherwise, it's really just me. Woohoo! Really depends on the person and what kind of lymphedema they have, what limb it may affect, what part of their body, all of that stuff. I'll talk about what it affects for me. Exercising is pretty difficult for me, but it's also a really essential part of management and treatment of my body. But my left leg is 3 times the size that it should be, so that's a lot of extra weight that I've just been carrying around my entire life. So running is something that I am not good at, and all of my PE teachers can confirm. Something else that is difficult is travel. If you have lymphedema, you're not supposed to be in the air as often because it can mess with your system. So I know when I travel, when I hate planes, I would like to be let off immediately the second I get on a plane. I'd prefer just not to get on it. But I have to be really careful with my compression, making sure that I'm not eating a lot of salty food. And usually after I get off the plane, I've bloated up, I've swollen, my legs are in pain, everything hurts. So traveling is very difficult. Other things that are hard include blood draws and vaccines. When you have lymphedema, you're not really supposed to get injections, needles, in your affected limb. And well, here's the thing, it's in all of my limbs. So that's really hard. Every time I've had to get blood drawn, it usually has ended up taking at least 9 tries for whoever's trying to draw my blood to actually get it. I know one time it took 15 different stabs for them to find a vein, just because there's all this swelling. It's hard to find a vein. And it hurts so bad. It was truly awful. So that's always really tough. Like, I'm getting the COVID vaccine. I'm very fortunate to be getting that in the next few days, and I can't wait. But because I have lymphedema everywhere, I'm gonna have to get it in my butt, and I'm not looking forward to it. Butt shots suck. That's what I have to say. And then other things, I can't go on roller coasters. And that was probably the saddest kind of thing I experienced with my lymphedema as a child. I love roller coasters. I love amusement parks. I love the thrill, the adrenaline, but roller coasters simply put me in the hospital. They give me a really bad bacterial infection. It's happened multiple times. So after the age of like 13, when I developed a really, really bad bacterial infection, cellulitis, lymphangitis, the doctor told me, like, hey, you can't go on roller coasters. Like, your lymphatic system can't handle it. All of the G's, the speed, the up and down, your body freaks out and you can't do it. And I think that broke my heart. Other things that are difficult is shopping. It is so hard to find clothing that works for my body. Mostly pants and shoes, things like that. Like, because one of my legs is 3 times the size that it should be, and the other one is like 2 times the size that it should be on average. It's hard to find pants that work. What I have discovered is that skinny jeans that are stretchy denim from like H&M, Forever 21, Old Navy, whatever it be, those are the way to go. So I've brought props to show you. My compression is a lot. It's truly so much. I am so tightly squeezed at all times. It's pretty incredible. But I wear a compression stocking on my left arm. And I do have one for my right arm, but I'm gonna be honest, I've really been slacking and wearing it just because it's hard. It's hard to wear them on both arms. But I think next time that I go to get measured to get new compression stockings, I'm gonna make sure to get it for this arm. And I think we need to go fully up the shoulder on both sides. I've noticed that, my upper arm is starting to swell more because the fluid's being pushed up, but then it's not moving. So I think I'm just gonna be fully compressed up to here. In terms of what I wear on my leg, I have these little toe caps that go on both of my feet. They help separate my toes and make it so that my toes are less sausagey. And then on top of the toe caps, I wear a thigh-high long little stocking here on both legs. And then on top of that, I wear like a high-waisted pant, basically, that goes from my feet up to like my belly button, my waist area. And that keeps me so firmly compressed. Other things to note with compression. I've been wearing compression since I was a toddler. And basically compression goes on the first moment I wake up in the morning. Like, I can't even stand up and go to the bathroom without putting my compression on, because if I did, I would risk just my legs swelling pretty immediately, because my case of lymphedema, I've been told by doctors, is very rare and it's very extreme, and within 10 minutes my legs can quadruple in size. And so wearing compression is so essential. So I keep compression on from the moment I wake up until the moment I am in my bed. And then at night I elevate my legs and I do some lymphatic dry brushing to try to just get things going. I need to work on acquiring nighttime compression because I have a lot of fibrotic tissue in my body, which is basically just hardened lymphatic tissue that has developed because for 23 years, my lymphatic system just has not been doing a great job getting fluid moving around. So when that fluid accumulates in your lymphatic tissue, it hardens. And so I've got all of this hard tissue everywhere, and it's really hard to break up. And it can take years of manual lymph drainage and kind of therapy to break up that tissue. But something that would be helpful, something that works really well is foam. I have a little foam insert on my hand here, and so having compression at night that is foam based would help me to continue to break up this fibrotic tissue in my legs and would just make it so that in the morning it's easier for me to get my compression on. I'm ready to go. I've only used it on my right arm, and I used it pretty minimally. One of the lymphedema certified therapists I was seeing wanted to see if it would do anything to help the fluid just figure out where to go in my right arm. But because I have a lot of fibrotic tissue, it wasn't super effective. Like, it definitely made a bit of a difference, but compression has been a lot more key in terms of managing my swelling. I would definitely recommend it though if you want to give it a shot and just see what difference it might make. It can help your fluid figure out where to go, but it's totally up to you. To provide some background, after I graduated from college in 2019, I flew to Germany and I stayed at a lymphedema clinic and underwent 6 weeks of medical treatment. And it was a really, really, really hard time. I was alone in a foreign country at this clinic, undergoing treatment for this disease that I was still so ashamed of, like, still hated so much about myself. And I also got a lot of really bad news in Germany. I found out that I will not be able to have kids. Like, I personally cannot have them because it could really destroy my body and really worsen my lymphedema. So that was tough to find out. I also found out that my case, because it's so rare and extreme, there are not a lot of options for me in terms of treatment. Things are simply only going to get worse. That was a very hard thing to hear from doctors. I think something that's very important to talk about in terms of my experience in Germany is why it is so important for us to apply a social model when looking at a medical model in terms of disability. Like in Germany, and I say this having known that this experience, is not something I regret in any way. I came away with much better compression. I came away with a lot more knowledge. I was able to meet other people with lymphedema, and that was really big. But my mental health really plummeted while I was in Germany, because throughout college, I'd been taking classes on disability studies, and I'd been really trying to kind of quiet this internalized ableism and shame that I had developed around my own lymphedema. And I'd honestly come a pretty long way with it. I wrote my senior thesis on disability and why it is important for us to associate disability with love and how it is not a negative thing and all of this stuff. And then I went to Germany, and I had a lot of medical professionals just telling me every single thing that was wrong with my body and was wrong with me. And it destroyed any confidence that I had gained. My mental health plummeted. I was just so sad. It was a lot of bad news, and just feeling so isolated and kind of alone in this clinic didn't really help. And I also had gone there hoping, that there would be like support groups and we'd be able to discuss our experiences with lymphedema. But that wasn't the case. I got there and I was one of the only Americans there, and I was also one of the youngest people there. A lot of the other patients were older women. And of course, I really enjoyed talking to them and getting to learn from their experiences. But it's just, we were so different. And I felt so alone. Just so alone. And it was so tough. But that's why I think it's really important for us when we are discussing lymphedema, when we are discussing disability, to apply a social model in conjunction with the medical model that we're using. Because I think we often tend to look at lymphedema, look at other disabilities from this medical model of, okay, we're going to focus on a cure, we're going to focus on treatment, we're going to get this solved. This is a negative thing about you that we need to change. And sure, I would love a cure. That's the dream. Like, I would simply love to not be in pain every day and to be able to wear what I want and eat what I want and do what I want. But that's not how it's about to be right now. But something that is also really important is to feel validated and to feel okay in who I am. And just my entire life, I was told by so many people, so many medical professionals, that this was a problem with me. And oh, it's hard. I think when a person is told throughout their entire life that a cure is needed and that a cure would fix everything, you start to feel this deep shame inside yourself. And I, from a young age, felt like I wasn't worth it. Like I'd meet people, they'd ask, oh, what's wrong with your hand? What's wrong with this? What's wrong with that? And when you're asked so many times, what's wrong with you? You start to internalize that, you start to believe that there is something that is very wrong with you. Sometimes a cure is not possible. And if a cure isn't possible, that doesn't mean that a person should then live in misery, Like, society needs to be accommodating. It needs to be accessible. And it should not be on us all of the time to beg for resources and to beg for treatment and options and mental health services and everything that you can think of. We spend so much time talking about a cure and talking about medical treatment. And we also need to be talking about mental health, especially for kids. Every single person that I met while I was a child, they would ask about my condition and I would tell them about it. Or I would say as minimally as I could because I was not comfortable talking about it. And I would immediately be met with so much pity and like, oh, that sucks, sorry. And God, it's truly, when every single person you meet tells you that something about you sucks and that they feel this extreme pity for you, it affects the way you process emotions and the way you see yourself. Which is why we should not be only talking about a cure. It's why we need to be talking about being kinder and being accessible and being accommodating and working on fostering community and raising awareness, sure, but it can't just only be in the hopes that one day there will be a cure. Because we don't know if there will be, we don't know. But I do know that many of us are here today living with this condition and have been for many years, and we don't know if we're ever going to get a cure. But that doesn't mean that our lives are not worth living right now. A cure does not validate a person's life. We desperately need to use a social model in conjunction with a medical model when we are discussing disability. Medical model cannot be the only thing that we are utilizing. It has to also include a social model because disabled people are human beings with emotions and opinions and lives that they want to live, and it being told all of the time that their medical status is a negative thing is really, really harmful. And this brings me into a great question that I was asked mental health services, and if I, in my experience, have tried to find mental health professionals that have background knowledge or experience with lymphedema. And I wouldn't even know where to begin with that because, it's already so difficult to find like a doctor that has background with lymphedema. Of course, there are certified lymphedema therapists and there are doctors that are experts on this condition, but you really got to go searching, I feel like, a lot of the time for it. So finding a mental health professional who has experience with lymphedema, especially in the current world that we live in where mental health services are so inaccessible, so unaccommodating, expensive, really only available to certain populations, to find a mental health therapist specifically for lymphedema seems like it would be really, really hard. I wonder if there is like a system or some filtering somewhere that would do that, but I haven't met a lot of people who have had previous knowledge of lymphedema before knowing me, so meeting a therapist, I don't know. there is so much that we could be doing for folks with lymphedema. I mean, in the past year, we have learned that society is able to accommodate and that remote work is possible, and employers have the ability to be more accessible and more accommodating to people with disabilities. We've seen this throughout the pandemic. We need to keep that energy up. Even when things can go back to the new normal or whatever, are you still allowing remote work when you have people who might have a bad medical flare-up? Are you offering paid time off for doctor's appointments? Are you offering benefits that include coverage for compression stockings and other treatment options? Like, these are things that employers need to be considering when they are just working on accessibility in their workplace. In the past year, I've been able to work remotely, and I'm very thankful for that. But it's also really changed my life, because now if I wake up in the morning and all of a sudden my right foot, is frozen stuck and I can't put any weight on it because it's just swollen up and it's hard to walk, instead of having to run to the train to get to work on time, I can simply grab my laptop and elevate my legs and work from my bed. And that has been so helpful. And I think we just need to continue this energy of allowing people to work in ways that work for them and work for their bodies. There's a lot more we could be doing. We have the ADA and we have everything like that, but society is not accessible. It's not at all. It's like we have done the bare minimum. There are a few things you can do. Firstly, you can join my team for the Lymphatic Education and Research Network's global virtual walk/run that is happening on April 17th. It is to raise funding and awareness for lymphatic diseases and lymphatic disease research. You can't participate in the walk or run, you can just donate because that will help raise awareness for lymphedema, fund further research in the medical community. Other things, Lymphies have been trying for so many years to get the Lymphedema Treatment Act passed in Congress, which would make it so that compression stockings and other necessary medical treatment equipment are available via insurance and covered by insurance for a lot of people. I mean, the Lymphedema Treatment Act will do a lot of things, and we need to get that passed. It's been introduced like every year in Congress, and it is one of the most bipartisan supported bills, but it still doesn't get picked up like in terms of the budget or anything like that. So you should contact your representative to be like, hey, frickin' pass the Lymphedema Treatment Act, because that's the big thing. That would be a huge step for the community. And then other things I think we can do besides like the research and medical aspects of it, I think a big thing that all of us can work on, like even Lymphies included, is trying to quiet this internalized prejudice and shame that we have ingrained in our own systems, because when we see something that is unknown to us, we are scared of it, we see it as negative. And if you have that thought, if you meet someone and they don't look the way you expect them to look, you then need to ask yourself, okay, but why do I expect them to look this way? And how can I change that behavior? Like something I've been trying to do is I have this little voice in my head that is very mean to me all of the time and tells me everything that I need to be ashamed of with myself. And I've been trying to develop a secondary voice who actually talks back to that voice and says, okay, but why do you believe that? Do you believe that because it's true or because society has made you believe that? Do you actually believe these prejudices that are ingrained in your system? Why do you think that you are so terrible the way that you are? That is not something natural that occurred within me. That is something that was taught to me. And so you need to break that down. You need to develop a secondary voice that says, no, literally shut up. Like, this is why it's okay. This is why we're not going to practice this. And this is how we're going to improve. And I think this goes across the board. It's not just with ableism. It's not just with lymphedema. This is with racism, transphobia, homophobia, misogyny, classism, all of it. You need to quiet that voice in your head that starts to judge and starts to be rude and be biased and prejudiced. Instead, you get a secondary voice, like your little guardian angel, that tells it to shut up and to think about things in a different way. Freaking does not. I am a game champion. I'm basically an athlete. It's pretty funny because actually playing game pigeon, texting, playing piano, things like that are really, really good for my fingers. It helps get the fluid moving. Like, I can't fully straighten the fingers on this hand, but doing little activities like playing cup pong or stuff like that is really helpful. Of course, sometimes my left hand freezes up and things go wrong in like game pigeon basketball or whatever it may be. Righty always comes through though. But it's like a fun little exercise for me, I guess. Consider me an Olympic athlete. And big thing I want to do is I've been wearing this freaking shirt the whole time and haven't said anything about this. This shirt says stay elevated, thelymphelife.com. And the Lymphy Life is actually one of the first blogs / accounts that I discovered in the community. It's run by Alexa and it's a really helpful blog. She's got an Instagram, Facebook page. You can check it out. She talks about a lot of things related to lymphedema. There's also the Lymphedema podcast, which you can check out. There's Loving Life with Lymphedema, which is run by Allie, and she talks a lot about clothing options that she finds for her affected limb. There's Lymphy Strong. There are Facebook groups. I'm gonna just put a bunch of links below, but getting involved in the community has been such a saving grace for me. Just feeling like there are those who understand what I'm dealing with and what I've gone through, and feeling like I can listen to them. Like, I've learned so much from the Lymphy Life. And also, this shirt is freaking sick. Go to the Lymphy Life store and order a shirt or a hat or whatever you want. Buy me one, keep sending me merch. Just kidding. I mean, you could. It would be nice. My birthday's coming up. We have a lot of ways that we can improve as a society, and we have the resources and we have the means to be kinder and to be more accessible. But I don't think we care enough yet on a public kind of level. So it's time to start caring. Call out injustice around you, call out discrimination, call out if someone's being mean. Like, the amount of times I wish someone had just defended me when I was being bullied. That would have been really, really big. But we can do that now. It's not too late. It's time to get started. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, give it a comment, share it with a friend. Raising awareness is such a big part of advocacy, and that's what I wanted to do here today, no matter how hard it was. Go check out the Lymphy Life. Go check out all of the people that I put below. They are really, really awesome, and I am endlessly grateful to them for, really beginning these conversations. I'm hopping in so late, and I'm grateful to have been accepted and to be able to be a part of the conversation now. But there are a lot of people who have been doing a lot of great work for a really long time, and we should be supporting them. So I'll put the links below, and you'll go check it out. But other than that, have a terrific week. Have a terrific day. Be nice. Be kind. Get your fluid moving. Am I right?